This video is to give you just a little overview and explanation of the assignment coming up for your next paper. So I just wanted to walk through it, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out and shoot me an email. So this is a paper, it's gonna be a 5-page paper, double-spaced, on a passage of Torah found or referenced elsewhere in Scripture. So the idea is that we're looking for places throughout the canon of our Scripture where Torah, the first 5 books of Scripture, are referenced somewhere else. So that could be another place in the Hebrew Scriptures or the New Testament. But it must be a book of Torah, one of the first 5 books, referenced elsewhere in Scripture. And I want to make sure that as you prepare, you really do look at your assignment page and in your syllabus. There's a very detailed description of all of the points, A, B, C, D, E, that need to be included in your work. I will be grading based on a rubric that looks for each of these. So make sure that you have at least one sentence, something about each of these to make sure that you've got, you are able to get full credit, because I want to make sure you get full credit for all of your hard work. So you're going to look at a passage of Scripture, passage of Torah found elsewhere in Scripture, and some of the things that you're going to be addressing are, number 1, what causes you to believe that this is a reference to a particular passage of Torah? So why do you think this is a reference to Torah? And it can be as simple as, it says, as is written, and it could be that it's quoting. It may be that this is the only other place that theme appears, or it references the name of a character that only appears in Torah. So basically just, how do you know that this is a reference to Torah? Don't overthink it. It's very simple. Does it quote it? Does it name a name? Does it talk about a specific place that's only mentioned in Torah? So what makes you think that this is a reference to Torah? Secondly, what is the original context of the passage in Torah? Tell me about what's going on in the original place where this passage is referenced in Torah. So if it mentions a name, tell me who that is. What's their story? What's going on in the story? So give us the context of the original passage in Torah itself. What's the context of the passage, of the reference that's happening elsewhere in Scripture? So you're going to tell me, why do you think this is a reference to Torah? You're going to tell me what's happening in the original story of Torah that's being referenced, and then tell me what's happening in the story that makes the reference. So for example, if you are using a passage of Torah that is referenced in the Gospels, you'll tell me what's happening in Torah, and then you'll also tell me what's happening in the Gospels when this story comes up, okay? So give us an explanation of what's happening in the story that it's referenced. And then I want you to talk a little bit about, how does knowing the context of the story in Torah help understand the story elsewhere in Scripture? So why does knowing the background, why does knowing Torah, how does that help us interpret the rest of Scripture? Where can it provide fresh meaning for us? And what truths about humanity, God, and their relationship to one another are being revealed through this reference to Torah? What truths about humanity, God, and their relationship to one another are revealed in this passage of Torah? You'll see number E, or letter E, has a list of possible topics. These are verses you may want to reference, and so it's got all of these are New Testament passages, and then it has the Torah reference in parentheses. If you would like to use one not on the list, that's fine, but email me first to confirm that it fits the criteria. I don't want you to spend all of your time and precious energy writing a really wonderful paper that doesn't meet the criteria. So if you're going to use a reference that's not found on this list, that's completely fine. I encourage your creativity, but email me and get approval first before you complete the assignment to make sure that it's going to fit the criteria. Because again, I want you to get full credit for all of your hard work. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me. And again, we'll discuss this in our in-person time as well.